What it do, gamers? This is Burn.
And this is Rye, and you are listening and gaming it up with Burn and Rye. Maybe we should do a Twitch channel eventually. I don't know of
Oh,
what.
of just us being horrible at Call of Duty, just raging the whole time. Nah, damn it!
Pretty much. I definitely don't consider myself a master at that game at all. But it has been pretty fun, especially the new one that came out like a week or two ago. So I'm digging the Black Ops Cold War,
Yeah,
the
I'm having
name,
time with
the game that has three titles in it.
that. Call of Duty, Black Ops, Cold War. It's like Jesus H Christ.
I mean, I think they should have just called it Call of Duty just Black Ops. Again, just even though it is a sequel, they should have just been simple about it. But Cold War at the same time, I guess it's like it's a sequel to, I don't know. It's weird. I'm not gonna get into the whole them revamping the series again like they did with Modern Warfare. So
hmm
let's skip that. But today, let's with PS5 and Xbox One Series X, which I'm pretty sure is
X,
the new one.
yeah, Xbox Series X. Is there so Xbox One X, Xbox? It's like what are you guys doing? Get your naming better.
That's the thing. They should have just called it just like I don't know, X Tower, because it's basically like a giant tower kind of thing. Like it's like a modem.
Yeah, just called the X rectangle.
Ooh, X squared would have been dope.
X
Nah,
squared.
maybe not. I don't know. The Xbox X squared or the Xbox squared. Nah, never mind. I'm not good with names, but
What were they calling it before they changed it to the Series X? Project Scorpio or something like that, right? The
I
Xbox Scorpio would have been dope.
I think that would have been super dope. But yeah, even Project Scorpio was badass already. I thought, okay, it's different. That will definitely separate it from the other ones, but instead, no, they just went to Series X. And I remember we were talking about that a while ago, where it's like people were pre-ordering or reordering the One X instead of the Series X, getting that
Uh-huh.
confusion going.
It's like, look, honey, I got you the new Xbox. No, mom, this is the one I have already. Oh, damn. Well, if they didn't confuse the names so much, then I probably would have got you the right one.
Yeah, I can understand that, especially just because if you're a parent, you don't game it up, and your kids are they just say Xbox because that's what everyone says. No one calls it Xbox One X. It's just Xbox, or even like PlayStation. But PS4 at least is easier to say than Xbox One X kind of thing. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not as crazy as just like every old person just calling any new Nintendo just the Nintendo. I'm gonna get the Nintendo. Which one? The the Switch or the GameCube or the Wii or the Wii U? The Nintendo.
I'm like, okay, we'll just stick with that.
Sure, sure, Grandma.
But I digress. Anyways, with the new systems coming out this month, and for those who can get them, awesome. For those who can't get them, like ourselves,
Like us. Oh, no.
I was gonna say just because it's either it's on the expense. I mean, they are pretty expensive, about average as usual, but it's also just pre-ordering these are just such a pain, especially because retailers are not allowing them physically in store this holiday season, just because of the pandemic. And I feel like that's the main reason why they just don't need stores being crowded just to get that or any more
Yeah,
chaos that's going on right now.
exactly.
So, we just decided let's talk about some of the games that really made a difference for this generation of games, which is the PS4 and the Xbox One X, whichever one you had. And I mean, I'll talk about like a little bit of games from both. I mean, what you feeling, Burn?
Yeah, I think I'll have maybe a couple that were cross-platform. I don't think there was any specific Xbox exclusive this generation that really, caught my eye. I mean, like I said before, I'm a big fan of the Gears games, and the two that we've gotten were really good, Gears 4 and Gears 5, but they wouldn't make it into like my top list of, the games of this generation.
Actually, now that you point that out, yeah, the exclusives wise, Xbox did not really do anything special, which is a little on the sad side. But at the same
Yeah,
time, I know that in the last recent years, they were both systems are kind of pushing for crossplay on both for some of the games. But
right.
It's still a thing. Exclusives are going to be part of the gaming console generations, whether you like it or not. I know this recent year people are upset because Spider-Man and like Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima. No, not Last of Us. Is that across? Is that for both systems or just one? Remind me.
No, Last of Us is a Sony exclusive.
Yeah, that pissed off a lot of people. Or like with Avengers, when that, even though that game is failing right now, that one only had certain exclusives for the PS4, certain characters for that system, and people don't take kindly to it. And like, I'm sorry if if you can't afford both, just pick the one you like the most. In my opinion, like I'm gonna go with PlayStation no matter what because that's what I grew up with. Some people go with Xbox, and if you want both, then shoot. I don't know, save up or I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I know it's not that simple. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, just speaking from my experience, having been an Xbox person for the longest time, with the 360 being one of my first consoles, and then buying the Xbox One, I never upgraded to the One X or the One S, and instead I went with the PS4 Pro, and I'm so glad I made the conversion to PlayStation because the exclusives have been so awesome. And I mean, we're going to talk about them more in length in a little bit, but just having that, being able to play, the third party games that come to both consoles, but then on top of that, also having these awesome exclusives, it's a no brainer for me.
Yeah, that's again, that's one thing that the PlayStation, aka Sony, has really brought to the table with the PS4 is that not only did all the games, because I remember when Xbox 360 was around, Xbox was like the pinnacle of gaming. If you had a
Oh, yeah.
360, you basically had it made, and it was great. I got
Oh,
that
yeah.
handed down to me from my brother, but he converted back to just PlayStation only, so I had both for a while. And I loved my Xbox 360. I think Xbox, even the new One X, has a lot of things. It's better at some aspects of gaming than the PS4, especially just due to the fact like game chat and all that, and capturing your game footage and stuff is so much easier on Xbox than PlayStation. PlayStation, I'm like, I don't get it, and it's kind of frustrating. So I don't really bother with that stuff. But like when I would play like Rainbow Six Siege on Xbox, I would capture some of my epic moments in that game, no problem, and I could send it to everybody super easy. So
Yeah,
that's
that,
one
that
thing I like about
is
Xbox.
Yeah, that is one of the things I will give Xbox absolute 100% credit for. It's just the user interface and the ability to navigate the menus and just, do what you wanted at like at the touch of a button was so responsive and just so user friendly that it's just kind of crazy how PlayStation, at least with the 4, I mean, I'm hearing a lot of good things about the PS5 in terms of user interface, but with the PS4, it's just very clunky to navigate around a lot of the menus. Where with Xbox, it's an absolute breeze. So, 100%, I agree with you there that the Xbox they really nailed it in that aspect.
Yeah, and like I was saying before, how a lot of games are originally tested on Xbox 360 graphics wise. So that's what every Xbox player had was that, oh, our games are look better on Xbox because it's tested on there first. It's like not this time, and still going around for the last seven years since the PS4's birth, essentially. Every game has been tested on that system first or graphics wise. So that's why PS4 I think had the better generation than Xbox did. And even though the Xbox One X does have some, I think it has a better graphic processor. I mean, both systems can do 8K, but I know a lot of guys are talking about like, oh, Xbox is going to be better this time around than PS5, and I say I don't care. Even if it was the processing power. Supposedly the
Uh-huh.
Xbox One X Series X processing power is like a few gigahertz faster than the PS5, but even then, it's like we're not even still done with 4K yet. So until all game companies really start utilizing that, I don't think it matters.
Yeah, and then just on just the naked eye test, it's really the difference is very minuscule to where, just in terms of the processing power between the two and what that shows in terms of, actual gameplay and the graphics and stuff. The differences are very minuscule. So it's really not that much of a big difference. But just the fact that, like you said, that it's there, that they do have all that processing power. Hopefully that means that in the future, with the technology kind of catching up in terms of game development, they can really take advantage of that and kind of maybe push the lead there in terms of graphical fidelity for the Xbox.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, the I'm thinking about it too is that I think certain games, like specifically the companies behind Call of Duty, I think they just need to stop doing the game a year thing. They just need to focus on one game every like couple years. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I do agree with that, and that just doesn't apply to them. That applies to like Ubisoft with Assassin's Creed. Just any game like that really has a yearly release schedule. I think it just doesn't make sense at this point. Just give the developers a little more time to have their game ready and make sure everything is all good before it releases, and then that way you just just give more life to the games that are coming out. And, give them some time to breathe before you're already bombarding people with the next thing. It's like just give it a little time because give people a chance to enjoy it. Really.
Yeah, like I mean, the biggest example for me that I've talked about in our private conversations is Call of Duty, Modern Warfare. It looked fantastic. I love the direction that we're going with it. Definitely trying to be a little more like Battlefield, it was a little more tactical, a lot slower gameplay to try and get the idea of just playing tactically. And that's what I really love, especially after playing Rainbow Six Siege. I want something that's going to be a little more strategy and gameplay than just balls out shooting. But then that's when, yeah, but because they only have another year until the new Call of Duty came out recently, it's like now what's the point in putting any effort that game? This other Call of Duty came out, so we got to get working on the other one. And it's honestly like if game companies for especially like multiplayer shooters and all that stuff just put more concentration to DLC and tweaking the game, I think you would get a lot better. You would have a lot better games, but instead it's almost like a yearly addiction. You just play it for however longer and then you move on to the next addiction kind of thing.
Exactly. I think they should look at Rainbow Six Siege for inspiration because that game, in terms of just the support that happened afterwards, after the fact that after launch, I should say, it would launch and it was kind of bare bones. It's just fine, but look where it's at. How many years has it been? 3, 4, 5 years since it's released?
It's been about
And
4 or 5 years, yeah. It's
yeah,
been and it's livid. It's thriving.
yeah, it's already years later, and there's the user base is still there, and just the fact that the developers have kept updating the game with guns and operators, and even reworking maps that just need a little bit of a tune-up. It's pretty cool to see them do that. And I think Ubisoft really nailed that there, and I feel like Activision and a lot of other first-person shooter developers should take a look at that and be like, okay, maybe that's something we should kind of focus on now. Give our games a little more time to breathe and let's keep supporting them after launch.
Exactly. But let's get talking about our favorite games. I got my venting out of the way with Call of Duty in that situation, and the fact that I hate to say it, Xbox users, PlayStation's always going to be the best. It was first, so just throwing shade at you a little bit. Not really. And I love all games. It doesn't matter. But PS5 is definitely the one I want to get for sure. But
Yeah.
let's look back at some of our favorite games for the PS4, Xbox One X generation. Shall I start, Burn?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna start with throwing my game, one of my favorite games I got for Xbox, which was Titanfall 2 around 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I
That
never
that that
played
is
the
a great
first.
one.
I never played the first one when the system originally debuted. I know my brother, I think he had it when he had his Xbox, and he said it was cool, but that was just pure multiplayer game. That was all constantly online, so there really was no campaign, which I know a lot of gaming companies were doing that for the longest time, but it's kind of become a model that just fails unless you're Overwatch or Rainbow Six Siege, where you can keep adding to it and keep making the gameplay fun. But this time it had a campaign and it was so heartfelt, so well done. I say it's the best shooter outside of, Call of Duty, Battlefield, all the major shooters. This is definitely the best game ever for when it comes to first person shooting.
Yeah, man. And I'll even go a step further and just say that Titanfall 2 is the best shooter of the PS4, Xbox One generation. I had so much fun with it as an overall package. Like you said, the campaign was incredible. If people haven't played that campaign, I would even say it's worth it to go back and check it out now because of just the creativity that went into it, just way that the Respawn, did the level design and how they interwove that into the actual gameplay was just so seamless. And like you said, there was a lot of heart in that campaign too. And just in terms of multiplayer, it's probably one of the most balanced experience that I've ever had in multiplayer with, the pilots and the Titans and all the guns and all your upgrades and all your tools, your grenades, the AWOL, whatever you want to call all the other stuff. It's just it all blended in so well to make one of the most fun experiences that I've had in a multiplayer game.
Yeah, I just remember you and I had played definitely several matches, and it wasn't like the most recent Call of Duties and stuff where we would get thrown in these crap matches after we do really well. Like it just felt completely balanced all around. The guns, any you could go into any gun and you'll do really well depending on how your gameplay style was, whatever pilot or Titan you use. If you know how to use them, you're gonna do well just like everybody else. I feel like that was a shooter that you could pick it up pretty quick, and that was the year that Infinite Warfare basically dwarfed it just because it was the biggest Call of Duty title. Like it was just Call of Duty that year, and it came out around the same time. So
Yeah.
Titanfall
And
2
also
unfortunately didn't succeed.
and Battlefield 1 also. It was sandwiched unfortunately in between those two games, Call of Duty and Battlefield, which have been established franchises for a long, long time. But I think that was by far the best one out of all those three, easily.
Oh yeah, it was the one we had the most fun on. No questions asked. And again, for those of you who's just like, "Oh, I only play Call of Duty Battlefield," totally fine.
Yeah,
But if you want to kind of venture out of your own little bubble with shooters, especially maybe into something that's actually great, that has a actual what's the word I'm looking for, substance to it, then I would say Titanfall 2 is one of the best ones, if not the best one.
absolutely. And Respawn have gone on to make Apex, which is cool. I mean, it's a battle royale, and a lot of people seem to be enjoying that. But I mean, I'm just waiting for them to make a Titanfall 3 at this point because I had so much fun with 2. I'm so excited for 3 if that's going to come out in this new console generation.
I really hope they do, just because if they did, I know it would bring back a lot of fans and it would just reboot such a great franchise. Like it's basically like Call of Duty and Gundam mixed together.
Uh-huh. Wait, do you remember where we left off?
I think we were just talking about like shit. I don't fucking remember now. God damn it.
I forgot what the last thing you said. Do just pick up after where I said that I'm excited for it in the next console generation, like Titanfall 3.
Oh, that's what I was saying. Yeah, I was excited for it, and I hope it does. So I'm just gonna skip from that and just move on to this one. So,
Okay.
but I digress. Let's keep this conversation rolling. So Titanfall 2 is definitely the game I think defined Xbox for me. Like I know it was available on PlayStation, but I'm the kind of person if I play a game on one system, it stays with that system, and I'll find something else for another one. So,
Yeah,
learn.
that is one I played on Xbox also. So that was before I got the PS4 Pro. But I mean, with the next one, if it does come out, I'm definitely getting it on PlayStation 5.
For sure, my brother. But what you got for me? What's a game that really made this generation of gaming great for you?
I will go with, instead of my favorite first person shooter, I'm gonna go with, I think, what is one of the best open world games of probably all time in The Witcher 3. I don't know if you've played The
Okay.
Witcher 3. Have you played that one?
I played it briefly. A friend of mine loaned it to me because it was kind of funny. We were talking about how The Witcher on Netflix. I'm like, "What's it about? Explain it to me." He's like, "Oh, I've never seen it. I've never played it. Yet I have the game." And I was like, "Oh shit, okay." And it was in the plastic. He never touched it for God knows how long it's been there.
Oh
But
wow.
I played it briefly, just the beginning, just because I've become more of a casual shooter not shooter. Oh my god, that sounds scary. I've been more of a casual gamer in recent years, so if I really love the game, I'm gonna pick it up and play it and grind on it. But I didn't expect it to be such a game to do that with The Witcher, so I kind of got turned off pretty quick, even though I've heard so many great things about it. And I really wanted, I kind of want to get back into it. I think it'll get remastered for this next generation
That would be cool.
just because it's that great of a game. So if not, I'll probably I'm still keeping my current generation stuff for at least a while until I get the PS5. But dive into it. The Witcher 3. Why do you love it?
I gotta say that The Witcher 3 easily is pound for pound probably the most bang for your buck game that I've ever played personally. And I think a lot of people would be able to, if a lot of people that did play would agree with that, just in terms of the amount of content that's in this game. I mean, I put in easily over 100 hours, maybe almost even 200 hours into the game when it came out. If you wanted to, you didn't have to put in that much time. You can just mainline the main campaign, which was really fun, or you can just lose yourself in the giant world that CD Projekt Red really created. It just feels so fleshed out, feels so lived in. The side missions are some that you see developers that are making game open world games today just reference saying that they wish they could make side content, side missions just as in depth and as really good as the ones in that are present in the Witcher 3. Just I mean the Red Baron or the Bloody Baron mission is one that gets referenced a lot in pop culture just because of just how in depth it was and how like it just as a side mission that you could easily miss how much like thought was put into that side mission story. And that's just one. I mean, there's so many there, and the world is so big. And just in terms of combat and in terms of gear, if you really could do it any way you wanted to. You can approach it from any different direction, just however you feel like you want to play the game. It just caters itself so openly to you, and I thought that was just so awesome from a gameplay perspective where there was no one playthrough that everyone had that was exactly the same. It was just so open-ended and so really well done in all different forms. It's just like it's ridiculous that that game was even made. And I think that really puts CD Projekt Rep on the map as one of the best developers of all time.
I know that's like how the company got its name is because of Witcher 3, which is crazy to think. And I've heard you talk about it. I've heard it being referenced by other gamers and companies, just saying how that gravity of how extensive and how in depth it was. And even when I played it, the first one of the first things you do is like you have to kill or fight a griffin essentially or investigate that.
Hmm.
And I thought even the design for something like that was really interesting, just because there's variations within a lot of like fantasy writing and games and stuff how certain creatures look, and I thought theirs was just it was like this is how a griffin would look if it existed in the world today, and I thought, damn, that's actually really cool. I wish I got to keep playing it. I think I'm gonna have to borrow from my buddy again, just to be hey. Let me borrow this for a few months once I'm done with my other games I need to play. In all honesty,
Yeah. Oh yeah, they definitely got to finish those ones first before you jump into this one because it's going to eat up a lot of your time.
and what is there anything else you got to say, or should I toss my other one in? Because now you got me talking, thinking about adventure games to grind on.
I mean, just if you haven't played the game and you do have a game console, and maybe if you've watched the series on Netflix and really enjoyed that, I would say definitely go and check this game out. I mean, this was the only Witcher game I played. I never played the first or the second one. I just went into this third one blind, and they did a really good job of having it be really understandable to newcomers and giving you all the necessary information that you need to just come in it from the get go and understand what is going on in the world of The Witcher. So, I mean, again, I think it's hands down one of the best open world games ever made. So, I mean, you wouldn't be wasting your time if you jumped in and played this game.
For sure, man. No, like I said, I'll definitely have to get back to that one once I get back to some other games. Once I finish Ghost of Tsushima, I need to play Death Stranding, and I need to get back to Horizon Zero Dawn, especially for the new one coming out. But one of the speaking of open world games, this one defined this generation for me. Came out 3 years ago, so like the height of like PS4's just prime essentially, and it's easily one of the best sequels of all time, Red Dead Redemption 2.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Just because how everyone was waiting for Red Dead Redemption from when it came out in 2010. Everyone's been waiting for a sequel, and then a year or two before it, like 2015, 2016, that's when it announced, oh, Red Dead Redemption 2 is coming out for the next generation. It's like, oh my god, finally. And I was one of those people that I wanted to see a sequel to it, where I saw Jack's son, or no, John's son, Jack Marston, become an outlaw. Because in the end of the first game, if you haven't played it, spoiler alert, John's son Jack becomes an outlaw himself, and basically picks up his father's shoes, literally. And So I thought that was a really cool way to end that game. But this one was a prequel for John Marston. It wasn't even really about him. It was more about the gang he ran with and the main character Arthur Morgan, who I thought he reminded me of a young Thomas Hayden Church. So I thought, why am I playing Thomas Hayden Church? I don't want to do that.
That's a good comparison. I can see that.
He just has that strong jaw like he did, like Church does. But honestly, just Arthur Morgan was such a great character, and depending on the decisions you made in that game, it really just impacted how his story turned out. And oh my God, if you were an honorable outlaw like I was in that, you had an epic story. And if you were just a low down piece of crap, you're gonna die like a low down piece of crap. Which I really loved about the game too, is that there have been games that have that decision making mechanic that it will change the outcome of the story, but nothing made me emotional like this one did. Especially when you felt feelings for a digital horse. That was the craziest thing about this game, is that you
Oh
bonded
yeah.
with your horse. Like you fed it, you combed it, you took care of it. That horse will be there for you no matter what. And mine was there. So when this one scene happened, I'm not gonna spoil it for anybody, but I just thought, oh my God, Rockstar, how did you do this? What did you drug me? Oh man, just and that was a game I grinded on. I played a lot of side missions. There's a couple I still never finished on there. Like there's one with a vampire on there, which I don't know if you ever played that one, but
Yeah, I did actually.
that one's kind of cool. And the vampire Saint Denis, basically Nosferatu, but yeah, it was just such a great game, such a fantastic sequel where you thought the other one was open world and had a lot of things to do. This one doubled down on it. There's so many more activities, so many more characters, and it just really adds on to the fun. And that's yeah, if you're not into westerns or anything like that, but you love Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption 2 is the game to go for, hands down. I loved it definitely better than Grand Theft Auto 5, and that was considered the best open world game for this console.
Yeah, Red Dead Redemption 2 is Rockstar's best game ever made. Hands down. Best game they've ever made. It is ridiculous what they were able to pull off of that game just in terms of graphical fidelity. Like it just looks so beautiful. Just seeing the landscapes and the lighting and the engine and it's so crazy that just like how dense it was with in terms of just things that felt alive in that world, like animals and people, where you can just sit in a town and just watch these NPCs basically go about life, which was kind of crazy. Where you can just sit back and watch them go about their day as if they were living people, and just that in that fact alone, Rockstar created one of the most realistic feeling worlds that I've ever seen in a video game, and just in terms of wow, man, I can't even put it into words how crazy it felt. How you can just walk into a town and pull down on the left trigger with anyone and have an interaction with them, and they would have a response to your character. You could talk to any NPC in that game. You can pick a fight with them. You can just say, "Hey, how's it going?" and they would respond. And then you would have an interaction with someone while you're out, in the wilderness doing your own thing. Someone would be maybe get attacked by a bear, or someone would walk up to you and say, "Hey, I was bitten and I'm by a snake and I'm about to die. Can you help me?" And then you do the thing, and you hours and hours of gameplay pass, and then that person appears in a town that you're in and says, "Hey, you helped me here. I'm going to do you a favor." And you're like, "Wait, I completely forgot about that. I did help this guy." They
I mean, sometimes when people got
Rockstar
bitten by
just
snakes, I just shot them.
I know, and then sometimes someone would cry for help and you would get ambushed and stuff. Again, just the variety of interactions that you had with other, non-playable characters in the game. Again, non-playable characters. These are just, it's basically just programs running through their little simulation, but it's just done so seamlessly and just with such craft that, again, it just feels like a real world. And it's kind of crazy how they did that.
Exactly. That's like what The Witcher, how you felt about The Witcher, that's how I felt about Red Dead. That was the first big story game I played in forever that I just sat down and played it for hours. Screw whatever other game I had going on. That was the game to play for me. Once I actually got around over just being scared of like, am I going to experience this and hate it, or am I going to love it? And I fell in love with it. So I'm going to pass that back to you, Bern. Well, what else you got for me?
Yeah, I mean, again, nothing can really be said enough to praise Red Dead Redemption 2. That one and The Witcher 3 are the pinnacle of open world games. And I would also throw in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild too, just because that's open world game that really gave you a lot of freedom in terms of how you wanted to approach it with just the physics engine that it had. I mean, it was the first Legend of Zelda game that I had beat. I played all the way through and actually completed. I had played a lot of the older games, like Ocarina of Time and a little bit of the Wind Waker, and I got through a good amount of the Twilight Princess, but I never completed an actual Legend of Zelda game. And this one was absolutely incredible to jump into, and I just couldn't put it down once I did. It's a Switch game for those people who don't know, but I mean that was one of the first games I bought when I was able to buy a Switch, and I do not regret it at all because just in terms of again just freedom that's the biggest word that I can put to this game is just the way you can approach things is completely open ended and it doesn't limit your gameplay. And it's pretty cool that this was kind of like Japan's first kind of toe dip into an open world game where we hadn't seen them kind of make those games before. And I think they absolutely nailed it because just the amount of fun that I had in this game is kind of insane. Just like how I can roll up to like an enemy camp, and I can really do it in any like approach the combat in any way that I wanted to, or I could, maybe like use the physics engine to drop a rock on them, or I can go in and just hand to hand combat, or maybe I can wait till it gets into nighttime and they fall asleep, and then I can just do all kinds of other crazy other things. It again just the way that they implemented their physics engine into the open world and just basically from the start of the game once you walk out of the initial area the world is completely open where you can be like hey I'm just going to go to the final boss right away. I mean you're going to get mollywopped and you're not going to survive at all, but the fact that they gave you the opportunity to do that is kind of crazy. And they said here's the world, go about it however way you want to. And they don't tell you anything. They're not like, hey, you should go here. Hey, go here. Here, go to this next checkpoint. Go to this next check. Nope. They're just like, there's the world. Explore. And I'm like, that's pretty awesome.
That is very interesting. I didn't realize the Breath of the Wild actually had that much going on for it. I just kind of saw it as like it's just a random adventure game that people were loving, and I thought, cool. I don't know anything about Link, or I just know he's a character on Super Smash Bros. That's all I really know. So, and that's how I grew up knowing him. But now that you put it that way, I could see the appeal with that game and why it did so well. Why it won Game of the Year when it came out. That was pretty crazy. So, yeah, that's a good recommendation. Shit, honestly, I want to get a Switch. I just I don't. I'd rather get it when it can be able to play online wherever I go, because I know that was a rumor that the new
All right.
Switch is
Yeah.
supposed to have its own like hotspot essentially, so you can just play multiplayer on the go, which would be super cool. And I think that's what I wish the other consoles could do something like that. Like you have the console and then you have a little screen and, with the controllers on it to take it anywhere you go. Because if I could play Call of Duty or Titanfall or even Red Dead on the go, I would never be bored.
Nah, man. I mean, and that is one of the biggest appeals of just the Switch, just being able to, I can play a game at home, and I'm like, oh, I got to go to work or something. Boop, pop it off, put it in my bag, head to work, and then on downtime, just pick up the game right where I left off. It's pretty fun, and that was a lot of what lent to the experience of, Breath of the Wild, just being able to take it anywhere I go, and just whenever there was downtime, pull it out and have some fun.
For sure, for sure. Um,
But what do you got for me, man? What do you got next?
well, if we're gonna, since we're on the adventure game route, the other one I do want to talk about, which is the most recent one within the last year, is Ghost of Tsushima. I think that is the game to end off this current generation with perfectly.
Ghost of Tsushima was absolutely fantastic. Go ahead.
Just because this is the samurai game I'm sure everybody's seen on, maybe haven't heard about it or like played it, but this is a game that made Japanese gamers jealous, which is a huge deal because this is Japanese culture in a video game where you play as uh, Jin Sakai, and he is fighting for Japan, his land in Japan, basically fighting the invading Mongolians for it. And that's where he kind of crosses the line between being a samurai and a ninja, and with the whole dishonor, honor, like just walking that line of what's the right way to go in this game. And the gameplay is so intense. It is very strategic where you make your moves. It's not a hack and slash kind of game.
Hmm.
And again, it made Japanese jealous where it's like, man, it's sad that we didn't make a samurai game this good, or we've never made it like close to this caliber, which I think is a crazy deal.
Yeah.
They hate everything else we make, and especially Godzilla, but they loved Ghost of Tsushima. And Naughty Dog has just proven to just be. Wait, is
Sucker
it
Punch.
Sucker Punch? I'm sorry, I get Naughty Dog and Sucker Punch mixed up, but yeah, they've made some of the best games of all time. Like one of my favorite ones from the PlayStation 2 era was Sly Cooper, the Thievius
Hmm.
Raccoonus. And it's funny when they go from like kids games like that to making one of the most adult adventure games possible. This game is ruthless, especially with your assassinations and when you kill people and just straight up combat. It's like, yeah, it kind of gives you the willies a little bit, just like, oh man, I just did that to somebody.
Oh man, yeah, dude. I'm so glad that that game was one to cap off the generation because if I was to say, Red Dead Redemption 2 was the perfect cowboy simulator, which it was,
Yeah,
this one's the perfect samurai simulator in every way possible. Just the way you could again, you can the freedom of approach was kind of like not to the extent of Breath of the Wilds, but it was a nice like medium between Red Dead Redemption 2 and Breath of the Wild in terms of just how open the world felt and just how you can approach, the different camps and combat in the way that you wanted to, where you can see an enemy camp and you can say, "All right, I'm going to take the stealth route," and you can do it absolutely from the get go, or you can just walk up to the front of the camp, initiate the standoff, and just be like, "All right, we're just going to go into all out combat, baby. Let's do it." And it was just so much fun.
yeah, I'm not that good. I'm not even fully upgraded. Actually, the guy I borrowed The Witcher 3 from, Joe, he passed me up on the story now. So now I got to get back to it. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I may not even be done with it, but I would definitely say it's game of the year material for this generation and such a great way to transition to the new one because I'm excited to see what it's going to look like on next gen graphics, as well as I'm open to if they keep adding stuff to it through DLC, like more armor pieces, more stories, or anything, or even just do a straight up sequel. And it's a franchise that has so much potential. Just kind of like in Deadpool. Just I think I'm smelling a franchise. I'm gonna pass the ball back to you, Burn. What other since if we're still on the adventure route, keep it going, or if you got something else, go ahead and throw up your option in here.
Yeah, I just wanted to keep on talking about how great Sucker Punch has added more to the game after its initial launch. Being a single player narrative game, you think, okay, the game comes out the way it is and that's it. But no, I mean, it's so cool that just last month they added a multiplayer function to it where we can play co-op with up to, three other friends and go through these, wave-based modes where you're just fighting off hordes of these Oni and all that stuff. I thought it was just so cool of them to do that. And I'm really excited to see if they just keep adding to the game in that way, or if they're just like, all right, we're going to take this, and when the next one comes out, we're just going to build off of that. It's so exciting that this, basically this new IP for PlayStation is just going to have so much legs for it going forward, that I'm really excited to see what they do in the next generation, because more Ghost of Tsushima is a great thing.
Yeah, exactly. And how we were talking about exclusives, this is definitely one that makes the PS4 better in all aspects. It was such a great game, and you can only get on PS4, right?
Yeah, that was a PS4 exclusive. And I think the rest of my list is going to be some PS4 exclusives. So to those who don't have PlayStation, I'm sorry, but hopefully maybe in listening to the discussion, it might maybe just nudge you in that direction for the next generation at least.
Or if you want to be a complete jerk about it, it's called to wise up and get a PlayStation.
Come to the dark side. We have exclusives.
Well, technically, it's always been a blue light, and so I'm gonna stick with the PlayStation being the light side and the Xbox being the dark side.
Oh.
Especially because they have the black screen of death, which
But they're gonna be like, but from my point of view, the PlayStation's evil.
well, then you
Well, then
are
you,
lost.
well, then you.
All right, Burn. But what else you got for me? What's? I know you got PlayStation exclusives for me, so go ahead and throw them out there.
All right, I'm gonna throw in one of my personal favorite exclusives, and I think it's gonna be a lot of people's personal favorite too. Was the Spider-Man PS4 game that came out a couple years ago.
I finally beat that this year, and wow, it was such a great game. I need to get Miles Morales, and I want to get the remaster for the PS5 because
Oh yeah, dude, those are gonna be the first things I buy if I ever get a PS5 in the next few months.
oh man. But well, I'll let you take over the. Why don't you talk about Spider-Man for everybody for me?
Just, I mean, Spider-Man has been my favorite character in comic books since the beginning, basically. I love him so much. He's just such a great character. And to see this interpretation of him, which simultaneously was absolutely faithful to the material, but then at the same time did a lot of different things with it and gave it its own spin, I think Insomniac really nailed it and knocked it out of the park. Just in terms of the story was absolutely fantastic and just the gameplay was incredible. Swinging around New York City has never felt so good. And I mean, from what I can tell, it only got better in the remaster in the PS5, especially with the way the new controllers work. I'm excited to actually get to play that because it sounds so cool. Just how the triggers in the controller will adapt while you swing. It just sounds so crazy, and it's a cool little gimmick that I would want to experience because I mean, just the game that came out on PS4 was absolutely amazing. I know it's a bit of a meme at this point, but it really makes you feel like Spider-Man in all the best ways.
Honestly, yeah, I think it is the definition of what a Spider-Man game needs to be. And like you said, it took liberties with the Spider-Man property, but in all the best ways. Like
Hmm.
the Sinister Six never looked better, in my opinion. Spider-Man looked fantastic, even though I was really hesitant with the whole white spider symbol. Basically, I thought they were ripping off Captain America with that whole color scheme, but
Hmm.
the way when the colors actually have a certain purpose to it, like when you look into the game and what it's about, it really makes a difference. It just adds on to the world building of this game, and the side missions are so much fun. Just the character design is just what gets me with this, and the fact that it's like you could swing everywhere in New York, everywhere. Even the Avengers Tower is there. Like
Hmm.
it's such a great thing. I heard they took it off for Miles Morales and stuff. I don't think they're gonna try and touch that right now, but honestly, it would be so cool if after Miles Morales, if they do a second one for Peter Parker, that we'll see more heroes involved in it. Because we kind of did with this one, more villains, if anything, than heroes. But it was just so much fun, such a great story. It was like all the best parts of the movies rolled into the best game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that the criticism against it is that it's just basically Batman Arkham in Spider-Man form, but I think that's just great. I mean, because Batman with the Arkham games, it really gave life to the comic book, the video game genre where we hadn't had really good games based on comic book characters, and that one was the first one out of the gate, and the formula worked, and it works here in Spider-Man PS4 just in terms of combat and just the gadgets that are available to you. So I don't view that as a negative. I view it as definitely a positive because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And they did enough differently to make it feel like a completely different game as opposed to just a Arkham with Batman. This is the way you approach combat and just the free flow of like being able to web swing around the city and then stop a crime when it's happening. It's just I think they really polished it in terms of just taking the Batman formula and really making it their own.
Honestly, Batman Arkham, that's one of my favorites. It's not one of the games that define the console generation for me, but that fighting style and just the game mechanics for the Arkham series is the standard for a
Hmm.
superhero game or just fighting combat in general. So when it took me a little getting used to Spider-Man because I feel it's a little more timing with it than Arkham was, where Arkham you could just press the button and it'll block it for you, no problem. It was a more
Hmm.
defense aspect, but this one, once I got used to it, it is just as fun. It is just as rewarding, and it does feel different because it's Spider-Man. He has a whole different way of moving, way of fighting compared to Batman does. So I say yes, keep the Arkham style going with these games. That's the only way it's really gonna work, unless you just want to keep getting hit or have to dodge everything. So yeah, I'm all for that, and that's what once I got used to it, that's what I really loved about this game.
Yeah, and I guess you could do a little more with the combat, but I feel like you said, it's just that's the standard because I mean, just in terms of comparison with the new Avengers game, combat felt, I mean, good. It felt really good, but it didn't feel as good and as polished as the Spider-Man PS4 game did. So I figure, like I said before, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Just build off of it, and they absolutely did that.
Well, I will respectfully disagree. I still love Batman more, but Spider-Man, fantastic.
All right, man. What do you got for me?
Well, honestly, Spider-Man, you stole that one from me. But since we're on the superhero range of it, this is one of my favorites, and this one is one of those few games I went balls out for, like going for the collectible edition, essentially, which was Injustice 2.
Yes, 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 yes.
Now, I grew up with fighting games like Soul Calibur, Tekken, never really played any of the Capcom versus Marvel games at home, but when I played the first Injustice on the PS3, that was such an interesting story just because it's the idea of one world in which Superman kills Joker instead of Batman, and he just becomes a totalitarian and dictator, essentially, just took over completely for the sake of mankind, when really it was just he's tired of humans and just idiots running the world and letting these villains survive. He just wanted to take over and eliminated crime. So some heroes went with him. Batman led the resistance of heroes and villains against him. And, they end up stopping him in the first one. But the second one was so unique and actually much better than the first one, and strictly just because you can make decisions on what happens in the game. So depending on who you fight with, it could change the outcome of it, or who you let live essentially can change that. And even the ending, that was the craziest thing. Depending on who you sided with, whether it be Superman or Batman, that would change the whole ending of the game and the whole story. So to everybody has their own definition of what they think should have happened. Like I sided with Batman, so my ending I think was the best ending. However, if you side with Superman, you get something screwed up and dark. And it's also a gaming franchise that sparked some of the best graphic novels for me. Like the Injustice books are so great. They add on to the video games and even go they're even better than the video games, and they have much more characters, which I hope they bring on to the games eventually. But oh my god, it was just too great, and I love especially with the graphics on this one. They made everybody feel so much more unique. Like everybody had a different face this time around compared to the first one. And yeah, they added more customization to it. The fighting mechanics are different. The maps, not I guess I would call them maps. The maps are great. So it's just one of the best fighting games for me, if not the best. Strictly just because I get to beat Superman up as Batman. So that's awesome.
I mean, just being a huge DC fan, it was just everything I could hope for. With what NetherRealm Studios did, especially with the Injustice universe that they created, was nothing short of amazing. Just because, I mean, DC really lends itself well to a lot of these Elseworlds type stories, and they really took that and ran with it and making their own versions of these characters and really taking a lot of liberties with how they would act or what they would do in certain situations, and really taking the idea of what a Marvel did with Civil War and those comic books, and just really like upping the ante to 11. They really got really crazy with it, and like you said, in some of the graphic novels that came out before and then after the game, they really do some crazy stuff with a lot of characters that you can't do in regular comic books. They would only happen in an Elseworld. So just the fact that they were able to make a story that was super interesting for a fighting game was, tip of the hat to them.
Yeah, like I said, just it just added on so much more to DC's lore for me that I loved it. The fighting I felt was much more polished than in the first one, and it was just a great game. Like I said, that's one that defined the generation for me. That was one I could definitely play with, you and Joe and a couple other friends of mine, just because it's like something we all play together. So yeah, that's easily one of the best fighting games for me. Besides Mortal Kombat 11, which came out last year, but it just doesn't have my heart like Injustice does.
Yeah, with this generation, I think NetherRealm released, what was it, Mortal Kombat X, then Injustice 2, and then Mortal Kombat 11 just last year. And from all those, yeah, Injustice 2 is my absolute favorite. I mean, NetherRealm has been my favorite, fighting game developers. I mean, I really like Mortal Kombat. Never was good at Tekken. I mean, I was okay in Street Fighter, but not that great. But Mortal Kombat's one that really spoke to me in terms of gameplay and the fact that they're making a fighting game with DC characters. I mean, I'm just so biased that it is my favorite fighting game of all time.
Yeah, I still suck at Mortal Kombat, but I'm great at Injustice, so I'm gonna take that one.
You take it, man.
All right, but what else you got for me? We're nearing the end of our recommendation. So what's another one you got?
Yeah, I've only got two more, and I think they're probably both on your list. I'm assuming because they are, I mean, easily, bar none, some of just the best games ever made. Full stop, period. And the first one that I want to talk about is 2018's God of War.
I was gonna say God of War is one we're definitely gonna talk about. And I finally got to beat this one in the first round of quarantine, which holy crap, I can't believe I never got around to finishing that game until this year, but wow. Oh my God, a game that definitely defined uh the console for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, and since you finished it, just recently, I want to kind of get your thoughts on it first, since it's so fresh in your mind. What did you think of that game, and why is it your opinion so amazing?
I mean, okay, given I was really excited for it when it came out in 2018, but I had that game, Red Dead Redemption 2, Horizon Zero Dawn. I just had a lot of games to play around the time, and that's just the one that kind of got dwarfed by Red Dead for me. So, there was that. But once I decided to get around to it, because I know you and Joe were talking to me about it. Joe's already beaten it a long time ago. You beat it a long time ago. So I decided, you know what? Let me finally get around to this. And the fact that he jumped from Greek mythology, the character Kratos, into Norse mythology, I think upped the ante a little bit. Because if you've studied Greek mythology in high school or maybe even college, there's a lot of messed up shit with those gods and those stories. And even Norse mythology is just as messed up too. Like it's
Hmm.
pretty crazy, and this game captured that. And again, how I love Spider-Man for the character design. Character design was fantastic for this one too. There were so many subtle little details that they added to some of the characters besides Kratos and his son Atreus that I thought, wow, that's really freaking cool. I want to keep seeing these guys. And the fighting mechanic, because this is the first God of War I've really played. I never really got into the other ones just because I felt like they were too violent at the time. But given I also played San Andreas as a kid, so that kind of goes to show it's a little weird. But no, I love the story behind this. I kind of mainlined the story more than I did the side missions this time. But with the second one coming out sometime next year, I'm gonna replay it. The story level plus, which you can basically all the gear that you finish with, you can play through with that gear. And I'm gonna do all the side missions because I know there's Valkyries, there's other dragons in there, and other kinds of pieces of Norse mythology that add on to it. And it was just so great to play through. And the ending is so, again, another heart wrenching ending, really, because it almost sets out the game's fate for Kratos in the next few or what it could lead to, and it could even explore other mythologies. So I think the world building I felt like
Yeah.
with this one just was the one that got me.
Oh yeah. I mean, just in terms of what went into this game was it's so crazy that they took an IP like God of War, which like you, I never played either of the first three. I mean, I'd seen it, I heard about it. The IP was big enough for me just as a casual gamer to be like, oh, okay, that looks pretty cool. But I never had a PlayStation, so I could never play it. And
Mm.
this was the first one that I jumped into, and I was just floored from the beginning. Just the fact that right when you press start to start the game, the main menu just weaves into the game right from the get go, and it doesn't stop. Like just the gimmick of the whole game taking like a one shot approach. Like the camera never cuts unless, of course, unless you stop the game like to pause and navigate through the menus. But just from going to cinematics into gameplay so seamlessly for a full, I don't know how long the game was, like 30 something hours. It was absolutely fantastic in terms of presentation. Some of the best I've ever seen in a video game. And just the combat was amazing. Just how you had your axe and you can use, runic powers, and then, Kratos' son, who is your companion in the game, like you can upgrade him, and then like throughout the game, he gets better and better. And once you upgrade him more, he starts contributing more into fights. And just the terms of enemy variety and how you approach combat. It wasn't like the old games where you can just, spam X and just build up a combo meter and just, swing at everything around you and just kill everything. It was a little more methodical and a little more tactical in terms of how you would approach certain enemies and what weapons really worked best for which ones. It was just so well thought out, and I cannot praise the game enough in that aspect.
Yeah, and also I was playing Spider-Man. I think I played this one right after that one or right before. So the idea of building up a combo by launching an enemy into the air and just keep slashing at them or keep fighting them, I think that kind of made it feel like such a stronger game. And yeah, just the axe play, and even when he gets his he has his own blades of chaos, like from the last God of War before that, where he has those two giant butcher like swords and just keeps fighting. It's so great to just to interchange your fighting style with those weapons. And yeah, again, just I love the characters behind this, the Norse characters, and the ending, which I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it definitely hints at, oh my god, like running into Thor and Odin and all those guys, and I can't wait to see what they look like in the next one. So, I just it was so great, and again, the fact that he could span into other mythologies like Egyptian and I think even like Southeast Asian like mythologies. I don't know, I don't remember looking at it, but I just thought, oh my god, I need the franchise right now. I need to keep playing these right now.
Yeah, and just the fact that at the center of it is a really intimate story between a father and his son. It just wraps the whole thing up in, and just all the craziness that happens in this game, which I mean, it does get really crazy in terms of scale and just the stuff that happens in the game. But, at the center of it is just this great narrative between a father and a son that really just drives the story forward, and I think was absolutely well written and really reframed Kratos in a different light than what, people had seen in the first three games. And I thought it was just an absolute knockout of the park. They did such an amazing job over there in Santa Monica Studios, and I'm so excited for the next one.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it was such an emotional story, kind of like Red Dead, Spider-Man, and even Titanfall 2, where it just has such a strong relationship between Kratos and Atreus. And I know that's debatable by some people's standards, depending if you played the game or not. But it really is just about a father trying to, just build a relationship with his son while also trying to just keep your son from seeing a monster that he is, because he really does show his monster side in this game several times over, and it's tough, but it's worth it in the end. So I can't recommend that game
Yeah,
enough, and I can't wait for the next one next year, I believe.
absolutely. I mean, with the PS5 and how crazy games look now, I'm just so excited to see what they're able to do with the technology and that is available to them in the PS5, because the next God of War game is going to look, feel, and play absolutely incredible if this game is any indicator of that.
Yes, please don't mess it up, Santa Monica. Keep it going, if anything.
So before I say my last one, I want to know what your last couple are, or whatever ones you got left.
The other one I just want to mention, I don't know if it's on your list. This is one that I really loved this year, and I hope they do another one. Is Last of Us Part Two.
That is my last game.
Then let's end it on that one. If anything, I'll have some honorable mentions in the end. But Last of Us
Yeah, I have
Part
a
Two,
couple.
Last of Us Part Two is like Red Dead Redemption Two. It is another fantastic sequel. And while I don't say it's game of the year strictly just because the only reason why is Ghost of Tsushima has better replayability and it's just it preaches to me better gameplay wise. This one story and graphics and everything was it's a long time coming, just like Red Dead 2 was, and it was just as emotional, if not more emotional. This is a game that really made you. I got into debates with like you and our friend Disney about what the right thing was to do in the story, or if you agree with these characters' motives or not. And it was such a game to remind you there's two sides to every story. So that's all I can say and why I loved it so much.
Yeah, I think Naughty Dog has created an absolute masterpiece. This is a game that elicited so many emotions in me. I mean, having played the first one, I mean that game was an emotional roller coaster, and I thought, okay, there's no way you can top this one. And The Last of Us Part Two just absolutely annihilated that game. The first game, in terms of just how amazing it was. Like you said, just it's the game that elicited so many discussions about character and themes and motivations and what would, like, again, what you said, what we thought would be the right decision, what would we do in certain situations, how would we have handled certain things, and just the character journey of Ellie that that she goes through in this game is incredible. And just what they were able to do in terms of narrative is something I'd never seen in a game, and probably in any other form of media. The what with the decisions that they made with characters, and what happens to them, and what just the cause and effect of violence. It's crazy that a video game is what tackled it, and just the interactive nature of it lends itself to the narrative so well that I can't see a story like this being as effective as it was in if you didn't play it. You can watch it and probably feel some emotion, but the fact that your hands are on the stick, it really, really makes you empathize and put yourself in the shoes of these characters, to where you're just completely immersed, and it is absolutely, again, just a masterpiece what Naughty Dog was able to do.
Yeah, I mean, I like you said it perfectly that I didn't think I could get any more emotional from the last one because the last one is easily this is a franchise that Naughty Dog created that is easily one of the best storytelling games you will ever play in your life. And if you I mean, I just can't think of anything that did a better job of making you invest in these characters and really with the gameplay. You invest in the gameplay as well. That this one, you definitely needed supplies left and right, and you had to search for them. There was no infinite amount of ammo, or you get like 10 clips of something to fight off a horde of clickers with, which is their zombies, or even some of the other, marauders in this game. It was just a matter of picking your moments to fight, picking when to be quiet, when to fight and survive. It was, and just again, the cutscenes were just so well done that it's like I feel like a lot of these that we've talked about, God of War, Red Dead Redemption, Spider-Man, I would say Injustice and even Titanfall 2. It's like you're playing the move through a movie or a series, and you're just sitting down and getting into it. Very like they're second to none, and I think this one, besides God of War and Red Dead, had the best story by far, the most emotional story.
Hmm. Yeah, and the most just unpredictable story too. Just the way they really pulled the rug out from under you, and almost like every step of the way, where you didn't know what was going to happen next, and the fact that you didn't made you really scared for the characters, and just because of the animation and just the attention to detail that Naughty Dog put into the game, where it lends itself to having some of the best quote unquote acting that I've ever seen in a game, where we couldn't really see that before in video games because, I mean, just technology wasn't there for expression of, facial expressions to really, give across certain emotions. So you had to explain it, it had to be exposited from the character. They had to say, this is how I'm feeling. This is how whatever you're doing is making me feel. But here, there's just because of the graphical fidelity and again the attention to detail and the motion capture work and the writing that these motion capture actors they were able to give across emotion with just facial expressions, and you knew what they were feeling, what the character was feeling at that exact moment. It's ridiculous that technology has gone to that point, and I'm so excited to see what they do next with that technology because I mean, just the fact that alone that these felt like real people is a credit unto itself.
Exactly. I couldn't have said any better. And I honestly can't wait for a third one if they do. Hopefully, we don't wait another close to 10 years for it. Kind of like Red Dead. I hope we don't wait that long for it. And Justice, I'm still waiting on Justice 3, which they definitely need to make. God of War, Spider-Man, at least we got Miles Morales and the sequel coming to next year. This is a franchise. And it's also, I will say, this is the biggest deal because this is a franchise that sparked its own series with HBO. And HBO, besides Disney Plus and some of our other episodes we've talked about streaming services, HBO is a top dog in that for original content and shows. So if they can do Last of Us justice, then there's no telling what they can do with it, and I can't wait for that. But yeah, that's one to end it for me. It was just too much of a gut punch to play. I haven't touched it since I beat it the first time, but I'm tempted to go back to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's one of those like Oscar type movies. Like if it were a movie, it'd be one of those that you would see in the discussions for like, best picture and all that or like, the Emmys for like the best show. I mean, if you if you're one of those people that think video games can't be art, I point you to this game because the artistic integrity of everybody that that was involved in this game, just the effort and the love that you can see put into it, from the writing to the animators to the combat designers. It's just as a package, it is one of the best things that I've ever experienced. Whether it be a movie, TV, it's just and it's a video game, and that says a lot because a lot of effort goes into making a video game, and for it to be this top quality is again just something I have never seen before, and I don't think I'll ever see it until maybe Naughty Dog makes the next game.
I will respectfully, I'm inclined to agree with you there, Bern. It is art in of itself.
Yeah.
It's like playing through a great book, a fantastic film, a series you never wanted to stop going. You know what I mean? You never wanted to stop. You just wanted to keep going for God knows how many years.
Hmm.
And ugh, just because it's that good of content, that good of a story that I didn't want to put it down when I was playing. And I mean, I did just because there were some legitimate scary moments in this game, and there's just some also just a lot of emotional weight to it. But once I beat it, I just thought, oh my God, wow. It's a game that made you cry.
Oh
Like
yeah.
this one, Red Dead, those are the most emotional games I've ever played. And I think that's what also contributes to the greatness of them.
This is the only game that has ever made me cry, and that was like it was just crazy that a game could elicit such an emotion from me. Where once the credits rolled, it was just like I had never felt like I had been emotionally like just put on this crazy roller coaster by anything, movies or TV. It's just that this game, I can't praise it enough. It's ridiculous that Naughty Dog pulled this off, and I know they've received a lot of backlash from a certain particular group of fans, but I think that like this is just 10 out of 10 masterpiece.
I say screw those groups. There was nothing wrong with this game. It was
Hmm.
fantastic through and through. For those who had complaints on it for whatever reasons were there, It was just looking to argue for something. It was looking to get butthurt about something, and I won't stand for that. I don't agree with you.
Absolutely.
If it upsets you, keep it to yourself and move on. There's no need to harass the game makers or the actors in this game for any reason. It's just never. So
Oh yeah, and you can tell that they hadn't played the game because had they, I feel like they would have been in the same boat as us, where it's like, again, there's a lot of decisions that the game makes that are really off-putting, but once you've completed that journey and you've played it, you were like, you look back on it and be like, that was the best decision made, and I couldn't see it going any other way.
yeah, well, like I said, man, ignorance is bliss for a lot of people nowadays. So let them stay ignorant. You want to keep ignorance? Like I'm not gonna let you ruin my day or change my way of thinking because you don't agree with it or because you think it's too liberal for you. So sorry, you got to move on.
Uh-huh. And again, just it's crazy that, it's a video game that is eliciting these emotions from a lot of people. It's unheard of.
Yeah, because like I said, people need to grow up, man. Get with the times or get lost. That's all I gotta say.
100%.
But that'll do it for me, man. Those are some of the best games of this generation of consoles, especially the PS4. I mean, we didn't talk a lot about Xbox or Nintendo, which there have been great games for both, but I don't think any of this caliber, especially if, because they just, neither of them had a lot of exclusives. Like Nintendo is a giant exclusive in and of itself, but yeah, I think the games we talked about were just the best for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have any quick honorable mentions you just want to throw in there?
Batman Arkham Knight, Gears of War, like we talked about, Rainbow Six Siege, and I will say Battlefield. I'll say Battlefield 4, which was like the last Modern Warfare one, and then I think that was the PS3 though. I'm not 100% sure, and then Battlefield 1. Just basically some other shooters and stuff that I got a lot of kick out of, but they still just never got it for me. So yeah.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I still need to play Jedi Fallen Order and Death Stranding once I'm done with this game, and I need to go back to Horizon Zero Dawn. So I'm sure those are also contenders for what made these consoles great. But until I've fully played them, I can't say anything about them.
Absolutely. Yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn would be, one that makes my honorable mentions. Again, really fun game. They did such a good job with that one. Resident Evil 2, the remake
Ooh,
that just came out recently.
forgot about Resident Evil. That was a great one.
Yeah, probably my favorite horror game of all time, just because of it was just absolutely fantastic. And I love the Resident Evil franchise, and I'm excited to see, where they go with it. But I think Resident Evil 2 is by far and away one of the best games of that if not the best of the game of that franchise. Let's see what else do I got. The Phantom Pain, Metal Gear Solid 5, another open world game which I felt lent itself to having a lot of fun in terms of just approachability, in terms of combat. I mean, up to that point, we had never had something like that, and I had a lot of fun with that game, and I know you did too, right?
Oh yeah, I spent hours grinding on that one too. I never got this one gun. I never got to customize or build this one gun in the game that I wanted to, just because it was such a grind. But overall, Metal Gear Solid, that was my first Metal Gear game to get for myself. And it was such a great one, was such great, again, character design, interesting gameplay. And I would definitely play another one if they bring it back. Or even remaster the Metal Gear, I think 4, where Snake is old.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind trying that out if they remaster that. So yeah, no, I agree with those. Those are some solid mentions too. Oh, also Mortal Kombat 11. I like that one a lot.
Yeah, that one's fun too. And then just because it's also pretty recent and it's a game that we've put in a lot of hours into, I'd say the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare was, for the most part, a good amount of fun. The campaign I thought was amazing. Multiplayer was up and down, and we had our gripes about that, but Warzone was a lot of fun too, and that's probably something we put in a lot of hours into, and easily probably the best battle royale game. So I'll throw that in there too.
I think besides Black Ops 3 and no, I say if anything, Black Ops 2 campaign, Black Ops 3 multiplayer, and Infinite Warfare campaign, Modern Warfare was the best one campaign wise all around. Best one of
Yeah.
this generation.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun too. And Cold War is great too, but I'm really not going to count that in this generation just because it's also launching on PS5, so it's a little more cross gen. So maybe once that generation is over, we'll see if that one's on that list.
Absolutely. But Black Ops Cold War is one I'm going to get back to when we're done. But that'll do it for me. Can't wait to get a PS5 whenever it's available online, just
Uh-huh.
because that's gone or still out of stock. And same with Xbox Series X, but there's no Xbox exclusive coming out for it this time around, so I'll just wait for that one in all honesty. Kind of like what I did for the Xbox One X. I got my PS4 first and then got that one.
Yeah, and then I do know that Xbox is really, at least in this coming generation, they're putting a lot of money into getting some exclusives. I know they bought a few studios, and with Halo Infinite coming out, that's probably going to be one where I'll pick up the Xbox Series X for that game, and what other exclusives that do come out, because I know they realize that they lost this last generation, and they should put in a little more effort into exclusives to get people buying their console in particular.
Yeah, because that's what made me get into Xbox 360 in general, is because it had Halo, it had Gears, it had some games you just couldn't get on PS4, and that's why I loved it. And that's why I still love it. But until Halo Infinite comes out, that was my main driver to get it. I'm gonna wait on that one.
Right. Yeah, and then in just Cyberpunk. I'm excited for that one. So hopefully that comes out at the end of this year. If not, I'm gonna be really sad. But as long as the game comes out great, which I praised Witcher 3, and I'm sure CD Projekt Red is not gonna let us down with that game.
I don't think that well, it looks great so far, but hopefully it'll be out in a few weeks. And until then, everybody, if you had some of your favorite games or, if you're interested in these games, please comment and let us know. Hey, what should we check out or what else do you want to know? We'll get back to you guys on that. But
Yeah, absolutely. And let us know what were your favorite games. Obviously, we did not cover all the games that came out this generation, and we may have overlooked some that is obvious to you guys. So, jump down in the comments and let us know what was your guys' favorite games from this generation. Because 7 years is a long time and a lot of games. So let us know.
yeah, that's definitely the end of a generation, the end of an era for these gaming consoles. Nintendo, well, it still has the Switch, and that doesn't look to be going away anytime soon. But for PlayStation and Xbox, it's changing. The times they are changing.
On to bigger and better things, literally.
Exactly. Literally bigger and better things. But yeah, everyone keep on staying bodacious and keep on ranting, Until next time, Burn. I'll talk to you later, my brother.
All right, man. Y'all be good and y'all be safe. We're almost there. Almost end of the year, everybody. We're right there. We'll get the goal line.
Exactly. Peace out, bro.
Adios, man.